possibility, and he made it count, taking Dale Carter with the 20th pick. Certainly a bargain. I think when you look back really at Atlanta, just to go back one pick and regress a little bit, you look at what they did. They gave up a second and a fourth. They ended up with Tony Smith and Whitfield. They remain where they are. They keep their second and their fourth. They get Tony Smith and maybe Porcher, a defensive end, who would certainly help out an Atlanta team very undersized on the defensive line. You look at the top group right now. You see the players right there, defensive backs. Darrell Williams still there. These are safeties, pure safeties. Marquez Pope from Fresno State. Darren Williams, Arizona State. I expect Williams and possibly Pope to be first-round picks. Woodson to be probably a second-round choice. So you can see there is some strength at the top there with the guy right now that is the marquee name, and a guy that I thought if he would have gone back to Miami would have been a top 5 pick in next year's draft. So remember Darrell Williams. When he goes, if it's say to New Orleans or wherever in the late first round, maybe to Jimmy Johnson who recruited him, I think it will be one of the best picks in this draft.
We now have 3 of the last 4 picks being DBs. Smith to Dallas, Dana Hall to San Francisco, and Dale Carter to Kansas City. New Orleans is up next, and remember, they have no second-round pick. They've got to make this one count, as they've got about 12 and a half minutes on the clock. Kansas City Chiefs, you know, before we leave them, we had this conversation yesterday in our 5-hour pre-draft meeting, which is longer than the first round. Next to the Buffalo Bills, who is the next best team in personnel in the AFC? Could it be the Chiefs? I mean, could it be Denver, Houston? There's some room for improvement there. Could it be Kansas City?
We know what Tommy's going to say.
I know what Tommy's going to
say. You mentioned Kansas City and Denver, and you say to Tommy, what do you think? Being that you think Denver's there, Tom, I'll happen to say Kansas City. I think Kansas City's going in the right direction. I mean, Mel points out very aptly their defensive secondary, which at once was considered the best in football, has gotten a little long in the tooth. The interesting thing about Carter, too, is he has played wide receiver as well. He's a very versatile athlete. Now, I think playing wide receiver as well as defensive back allows that cornerback or that safety the opportunity to not only be able to play defensively, but with an offensive mind. You anticipate moves, you can read receivers a little bit better. I think it gives him a great sense of versatility as a defensive back, having played on the other side of the football. Now we can talk about how deep Denver is.
I agree with you. I think that's an excellent choice for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that you're going to get a lot. That secondary has aged a little bit. But if we're talking about the second best team in the AFC, I just look at the record. And I see who goes to the show.
Of course, the Chiefs, in case people have missed it in the offseason, Plan B, DeBerg out, Dave Craig in, their quarterback. Still going to run the ball with Word and Okoye, etc. But David Craig is their new quarterback, and Dale Carter, a new member of their defensive backfield. He can return kicks, too. That's maybe where you look at him along with Harvey next year. We'll be back with the Saints.
Diet Pepsi introduces Aha Month. Aha will be everywhere this April. Grocery stores, restaurants, beaches, everywhere. And to kick it off, we're sending 1 million lucky Diet Coke drinkers a free case of Diet Pepsi, guaranteed delivery by UPS.
It's the celebration of the year, baby. You got the right one, baby. Yeah.
With 100% Aha.
What's making big news? Look in the Life section of USA Today for fun facts and daily Aha updates.
Who is the world's greatest athlete, Dan or Dave? Dan is a champion decathlete. Dave is a champion decathlete. Dan wears Reebok. Dave wears Reebok. Okay, so who makes the most noise? To be settled in Barcelona.
Darryl Strawberry and Eric Davis. Once they were boyhood friends. Now they're
In your face.
The Dodgers battle the Cardinals live at 10:30 Eastern on ESPN Monday Night Baseball.
The New Orleans Saints are up next. And they've been on the phone, and Vaughn Dunbar, who was here in New York, has been on the phone with them. So if we're to deduct that maybe that's their pick, we'll see. Chris Myers has some thoughts from Dallas. Chris?
Yes, Vaughn Dunbar, Chris, is the running back that they liked. On the Saints board, they did not think that he would slide that far down. The Saint priorities were offensive tackle and cornerback. Dunbar is a running back who would have to fit into a certain scheme. One of the club officials described him as an Emmitt Smith type of runner. Some others have said he could be more like a Thurman Thomas runner. The Saints traded for Alan Pinkett. They had more of an interest in a fullback in this draft. Ironhead Hayward fell off his workout program with Mackie Shilstone, which he began in January. It concludes in June. He supposedly is back on that program. His weight recently was just under 300 pounds, which is way over where Jim Mora and Jim Finks would like Craig Hayward to be. But it looks like Vaughn Dunbar is the guy. If they can work out some type of contract agreement, that would be the choice for the Saints in New Orleans. And again, according to their board, they did not think that he would slide down quite that far. Let's go back to Chris in New York.
All right, Chris, thank you. So the New Orleans Saints. Now, remember that they picked up Alan Pinkett in the offseason, but they had a marvelous back in Dalton Hilliard, but he's been hurt. He showed the flashes that Monday night game late against the Raiders, but they don't know about him. You heard Chris mention Ironhead falling off the training program. McAfee, you know, what is he, a 6th-round pick? He ended up the year being their tailback. The Reuben Mays never came back to play for them. He's now a member of the Seahawks. So Buford Jordan is a fullback type. They need stability with the running back, and the fact that Dunbar fell this far, I think, just fell into their hands, because I thought they'd go wide receiver, a big wide receiver. Dunbar is higher rated than Pickett.
Well, I think New Orleans is in a very interesting situation, Chris. I mean, they certainly could use a little help at wide receiver. Their defensive backfield, you know, Vincey Buck got hurt last year, but everything looks like it's on track for him coming back, so that can help them out a little bit. They're still susceptible in the secondary, and obviously at the running back position, there's a lot of question marks. If I was the Saints at this particular position, which I'm not, but I'll take a chance anyway, I think I'd go with Vaughn Dunbar. Even though he got on the phone, I'm a little skeptical because he talked to the Saints on the telephone. He didn't pick up the hat. I'm a little scary because he didn't pick the hat up and carry it with him. I know it happens sometimes, but he didn't pick the hat up off the table, sort of walked away, maybe looking a little bit disgusted. New Orleans might have just said, hey, look, we'd like to take you here, but we've got other needs. If we get a chance to make a deal, maybe we'll get you a little bit later. I think Dunbar's certainly a first-round choice. But the problem is this New Orleans Saints team, again, 1 or 2 players away from maybe getting to that next level in the playoffs.
Well, they won the division last year, did the New Orleans Saints. They lost in the first round of the playoffs, but they feel with some offense they can really make a move.
Cha-ching was the painful sound heard by quarterbacks throughout the league as linebacker Pat Swilling rang up an NFL-high 17 sacks. Ricky Jackson was equally as devastating as the Saints led the league with 48 takeaways. But burdened with an injury-depleted secondary down the stretch, the Saints were victimized often by the long pass. On offense, with Bobby Hebert running the show, the Saints clicked on all cylinders. But when he was injured, they struggled under Steve Walsh.
Defensively, no question about the Saints. The second best in football, plus 18 giveaway takeaway, 50 sacks registered, only 19 allowed. However, offensively, when Hebert wasn't in, they just didn't move the ball well enough. Now, Saints got some good news, is that Vince Buck, the neck injury, very scary neck injury, one of their corners who had played very, very well. Remember, they lost all the DBs, or many of them at the end of the year, that he got a very good grade, if you will, from the doctors. So that's, otherwise, if his neck was in a lot of trouble, they might have had to go defensive back even with Dunbar there. So that's good news for everybody. I mean, whether you root for the Saints or not, you want Vincent Buck to be fine. So he's in good shape. And the Saints, you're going to have to score. They got the defense. You're going to have to score with Atlanta and San Francisco in that division.
Yeah, but I think they still might further solidify that defensive backfield. I think Vince Buck is a question mark until he steps back on the football field. You know, after all, I mean, this team, the strength of this football team is not their offense. The strength of this football team is how well they stop people. When they had to depend on the offense to move the football to win football games, you know, they lost so many games at the end of the year, they almost didn't get into the playoffs. So I still look for this team, even though they've had the phone over there with Vaughn, that they might still take a defensive back.
Well, that's right. We've said it, Dunbar, he was on the phone, but it's not done yet. Mel, let's look at your board here now and see how things have gone as we wait for the 21st overall selection. First 5 are gone.
Well, I think Carl Pickens is an outstanding receiver. We'll go later portion of round 1, a guy that excuse me, is still there.
Choked up for a Come on.
Another Tennessee player, Chris. Number 15 linebacker Chuck Smith, a guy that is a projection, but I think he's a very good football player. You know, of course, Darrell Williams, a DB, Vaughn Dunbar running back. We know why Bill Johnson's sliding because of that injury. Alonzo Spellman, not the production to match his athletic ability.